All right, what's going on? I want to get started right away. Because I don't want to spend all day on this. Let me move my fat head over here instead. That's better. Okay, so um, welcome to AP Macro. By now, all of you should have already started the summer assignment. There's more than enough work to get done that did not require any additional guidance other than what I've already given you. Today is more like a precautionary tale more than anything. I want to explain a couple of elements, why they need to be done, the way I want them done. I'm going to be very inflexible about this particular thing, and I will explain why. Okay, so let me pull up a Google Doc quite quickly so that way I can get us going on this. Okay. Let's do... We'll do this. Just a regular blank document. We'll do us fine. All right, that'll sit there for now. Let's check the analytics. Wow. 4 people at the same time. I didn't expect a large audience. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a random Monday. I totally understand that. But I want to get this out. For those who don't catch it live, there's going to be a video, a VOD available, a YouTube video available on the channel that has the same link. You should be able to just follow the link and go watch it. It takes about an hour sometimes to upload. Once I'm done with this, I hit a couple buttons. It automatically does it. And you should be able to find it no problem. So my intention is not that this needs to be a live thing. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. I have the chat on my window here in front of me so I can watch it. I have a cappuccino in hand. I'm ready to go. Okay. I was asked, when do we get in the summer assignment? And what I said was, and it was true, is I wanted to see the results of last year's AP test before I decide what alterations, if any, I like to make. What I would say is, in very typical fashion, the AP grades, especially among the senior class, the seniors, go in cycles. And what I mean by that is there is a sort of a balance between the number of students I have signing up relative to the whole grade and the outcomes of those grades. In typical terms, what happens is the amount of 3s, if you like raw absolute number, the amount of 3s, 4s, and 5s tend to still be very good for me no matter what goes on. As the numbers of the class gets larger, and by that I mean as it takes up a larger percentage of the senior grade, it becomes not necessarily that way. Well, no, that's not true. Those numbers tend to stay the same. What rises with it are the 2s. And I attribute this to a very simple thing. If I still deliver the same number of 3s, 4s, and 5s every single year, why are there an upswing of 2s? And the answer is very simple, and I don't like to put it this way. It's my fault, but it's not my actions, and I'll explain what I mean by that. It's my fault in the sense that this particular phenomenon is, without a doubt, a clear result of what I've been quoted to me as the Shoreham senior experience. I've had many students tell me this phrase. I'm here for my Shoreham senior experience, which roughly translated means after 11 years of high school, or after 11 years of public school, I have gone through so many hardships that I now am entitled to a year off, in which I should have no expectations, no responsibilities, and be praised for everything I do. Now, this is not necessarily a phenomenon that all students subscribe to, but I have seen it very, very regularly throughout the years. Even in students who traditionally, in previous, say, for example, in what I consider to be harder classes, AP World, for example, did very, very well, just tell me, without even a blink of their eye, FYI, I'm not doing anything this year. And why then is that my fault? It's my fault because I clearly haven't created the proper incentive structure, or if necessary, disincentive structure, to ensure that students are in fact doing the work. Here's an irony of the statistics of last year's test. Again, 5s, 4s, and 3s were perfectly fine. There were more 2s that I am comfortable with. There will always be some 2s. There were more than I'm comfortable with. And when I looked at the names on the list of 2s, what bothered me is there were a number of them that should have been 3s or 4s. And when I looked at the list of 3s, there were several of them. I'm like, how did this kid not get a 5? And then I remembered what they had told me. They had told me flat out they were not going to even attempt to try. Here's one thing that I found that was interesting in the statistics of the class. If you look at the actual results of the test, and I'll show you guys this when we get back, when we all get in there. I always pride myself in the fact that my students are very, very good at the second part, the free response questions of the test. And in a year where my twos were larger than they've been in quite a while, I assumed I was going to look at those numbers and see that that wasn't true. But that's not what I saw. In fact, my students maintained, as a whole group, even the twos, everybody in there, maintained a very, very, very high score on the free response section of the test. As high as previous years, which led me to wonder, well, wait a minute, if everybody's still very good at doing the free response questions, why is there such a fall off in the grades? And the answer is they were terrible at the other section. At least the twos were terrible at the other section. What is the other section? Well, it's the multiple choice. So, although I think multiple choice is a terrible format for testing economics, I think I can go to my grave believing that, it is nevertheless 2/3 of the exam. So, how do we address that? Well, my decision, and one of the reasons you got a delay on the summer assignment, was I sat there and said, well, what can I do with the summer assignment to address that issue? And I got to thinking, and I decided that's not the issue. The issue is, how do I address the student who will AI, fabricate, check out, not care about their results on a day-to-day basis, who are happy and comfortable with terrible quiz grades, happy and comfortable with terrible test grades, because they believe they'll buoy those grades with other elements that are easier to do or effort-based or whatever. And so I realized that what I needed to do was go back to the way I do AP World when it comes to the day-to-day sort of work in this course. And in addition, I've decided this year that we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to have effectively a weekly assignment booklet, for lack of a better term. I will have this all organized by the time we get back to class, but it's going to have several elements in it, some of which will be required elements, some of which will be optional elements, and you have to do them all. And if you don't do them, you don't get your weekly student participation grade. And the elements of it that are not student participation, what do we call it? Student engagement. I hate the thing, but it's part of I have to do it. It's required in the grading system of the school. So since I have to have a grade that is purely effort, some of this will count for that. Other elements of it will count towards student, the extended assignment portion of the grade, which is you have to build these things over time. In order to cut down and maximize the chances that students are not incentivized to try to AI everything that happens outside of the classroom, I am going to create uncomfortable barriers that make that more difficult to do than it would otherwise be. One of those barriers is going to be these assignments need to be handwritten. And we're going to talk about how that works. We're going to talk about how you do them. An element of them is going to be due every Friday and done live in class. For example, those of you who took AP US last year, I'm sure you were in love with your vocabulary quizzes or your key terms quizzes. I've decided Miss Gianfala is onto something there, and I'm going to be incorporating key terms quizzes every week into AP Macro. Now, what will happen is, because our pacing is much slower than AP US, we are going to have a system where, while we might take, say, for example, 2.5 weeks on a single chapter in the course, there might be 15 words or key terms in there. You're going to get the bank of key terms day one of that chapter, and you're going to be expected to define them, and I'll go through how that has to be done. And no, ChatGPT definitions are not going to be acceptable, as you'll see. But once that's done, I'm going to have a weekly quiz where you're going to get individually, you're going to get a random selection of those words to be tested on. So by the end of the chapter, the odds are good. In fact, I think I'm going to plan it this way on purpose, that you will not be tested on every single vocab term, but you will be tested on them randomly. Might you get tested on the same vocab term, one quiz, and then again on the next quiz? Absolutely. Might you get tested on vocabulary terms from previous chapters? Absolutely. The course is fully cumulative. There is no, well, you didn't learn the Greeks, but you can learn the Muslims just fine. Nope. The course is fully cumulative. So this is going to be the way we do it. So in other words, what's going to happen is if you are not keeping up with the course on your end of things, you're going to create a snowball effect by which you become more lost and your grades get worse and worse and worse at a rapidly increasing pace. So in other words, the curve of exponential failure is going to get more and more and more vertical as the course goes on, which will be helpful for some of you to grasp the idea of elasticity and curves, which is a thing we need to know in this course. So that's going to be a thing. I'm extremely comfortable with the idea of it, and we're going to do it, and it's necessary. I think it's absolutely necessary at this point. I've already made a sort of a post early in the summer that there will be no Chromebook usage in the class with very little exceptions. The exceptions will include things like if I need you to take a quiz on one of our online platforms, either the textbook or AP Classroom, sure, I might say make sure you have your Chromebook tomorrow for the quiz. But in general, no. There will be no note taking. I don't care if you prefer it. I do not have the luxury of giving you the benefit of the doubt that as a young person, you have the wisdom to use this tool wisely. I am fully aware of how it's used in 99% of students' cases, so there will be none of it. You will need a paper notebook, you will need pen and paper, you'll pen, pencil, whatever, and you will be expected to do all the notes, all the day-to-day work in class there. Any notes or anything like that I have are often done on the whiteboard by hand anyway. I don't utilize the smartboard in any particular way for the delivery of notes. That's mostly there for examples or something. I very rarely use the smartboard in any way in macro. It's just not a necessary thing for me. The whiteboard is much more effective. So yeah, so that's going to be a thing. Now, if this is making you uncomfortable and you're like, man, this isn't really what I signed up for, I'm sure there are greener pastures. I'm sure there are easier ways to get through senior year. If your senior SHORM experience is that valuable to you, I will not get in your way. But as I see it right now, I have 59 students, I think is the number, signed up for AP Macro this year. I don't know exactly how many seniors we have, but let's assume it's like 150 seniors, 160 seniors. Are 1/3 of all the seniors ready to be AP students? Well, I hope so, because you're 12 months away, give or take, from being a college student where every class is AP. So I'm going to assume that, yeah, I would assume the overwhelming majority of SHORM students should be college ready right now. Right now. If you're not ready by your senior year, the odds are good you will not be ready by 13th grade. That is not likely. So the stumbling block there, though, is often not intelligence or capacity. It's often maturity. And there are a great many students who wrongly believe that, well, they can turn it on at any time. It'll work out in the end. It always did before. It always will now. And after seeing some of the people who had twos last year, I'm just not going to buy into that theory again. Now, I don't want to make you pay for the sins of other people, but I have a responsibility as your instructor to put in front of you a program that leads to your success. What I have in mind will not harm any student that was going to score a 3, 4, or 5 anyway. It might increase the number of 3s who get 4s and the number of 4s who get 5s. And my hope is that it'll increase the number of 2s who get 3s or 4s. And if you are destined for a 1, that you recognize that there's a maturity issue there. You don't want to do this course in the first place, and you're just here because you'd rather be with me or in my classroom than in somebody else's classroom. That, while flattering, is likely not a winning strategy in this particular year. So if you're the kind of person who thinks or had planned to, yes, I've been told this was an active plan by many students last year, had planned to take the year off in all but, the bare minimum of necessities, this is going to be an uncomfortable experience, all right? For those of you who took AP World, I would expect something closer to that. If that may make you happy, it may terrify you, I really don't know, but I would expect something closer to that in terms of like the expectations of the work that we do. So expect that like weekly cadence where we're constantly doing stuff, that you're being tested on your performance. So cutting through all that, that was 28 minutes of introduction. Well, not quite, because some of that was dead space actually of the intro. Let's get into the actual summer assignment and what I wanted to go over. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. I don't want to linger on it for too long. I don't think it's necessary to linger on it for too long. I have the files right here that we're working on. So let's go ahead and talk about it. All right, part A. This is the sort of the nuts and bolts of the material. The expectation is you read all of chapter 1 and all of chapter 2 from the summer textbook. And if I scroll correctly, I want to believe it's right there. So if you go to that classwork tab and you go to right here, the AP summer, sorry, I'm lying to you. Where is that textbook? Right here, textbook. This textbook is an online PDF. It fell off a truck. Don't ask me where I got it. And it is a textbook we used to use back in the day. I have other textbooks I like. Those of you who remember SmartBook from AP World History, it's back, baby. And it's just as useful as it was then. If you didn't like it then, you're not going to like it now. But you're to read chapters 1 and 2 of this book. This is a real AP college textbook. As I said, it's a bit dated, but that's okay. The stuff in chapter 1 and 2 hasn't gone anywhere. So you can read that right there. If you really feel like you want to print it out, go ahead. That's up to you, but I made it available to you for free there. Okay, back to the top. So that's starting there. You read those, okay? Well, what if I don't want to read it? What if I want to take the file and give it to ChatGPT and be like, yo, Chat, yo, Gemini, could you find me the answers to all these questions in this AI? You could absolutely do that. You're breaking the rules of the course. We're going to talk about the AI policy in a minute. AI is forbidden to be used in this course in any capacity, not because I don't think AI is useful, not because I'm a giant hypocrite who uses AI all the time but won't let you use it. No, it's not that. It's that you do not have the wisdom, as young people generally, to use AI as a tool rather than as your brain. And since, again, one of my responsibilities is to save you from yourself and loco parentis, it is forbidden in the course. So if you try to break that rule, there are going to be times you get away with it, and there's going to be times you not. You cannot use AI in my course. My AI policy, which is the 0% not allowed, will be in the syllabus. You will have to read it. You will see it. You will agree to it. That's the way it is. So also, you'll do terrible on the test at the end of this thing. So we'll get to that in a moment, okay? Because, of course, there is a test when you get back, and you will bomb it. So you read the textbook. Then you do this AP Summer Workbook file. Now, if you would prefer, this is the file. This is a very famous book. Again, if I'm giving you a workbook, could a student go and Google and find all the answers? Could you feed this workbook to ChatGPT? It can give you the answer key. Yeah, I'm sure it can. Again, if the problem you're having is that you're starting your senior experience, the Shoreham senior experience, by having no integrity, no character, and no willingness to do any work, I remind you all, you don't have to be here. This is not the safe harbor you think it is. It's just not. It's just not. And by the way, if I have an issue with your submission, if I look it over and I have an issue with it, I remind you, every tool you have is available to you to cheat. I have more tools to try to catch the cheating. And if I find there's something that I find to be an anomaly or something curious about it, don't be surprised if I ask you individual questions about what your work was, where it came from, what it is, how it's done, etc. Really don't be surprised. Now, this needs to be printed and your answers need to be done on it on paper, okay? Now, if you don't want to print it, that's fine. There are copies sitting in the the main office in the high school in a box. Please don't take my AP World stuff. There's AP World stuff in that box. There's AP Macro stuff in that box. There are copies of this packet in that box. Help yourself. There isn't enough copies for everybody, but I assume not everybody either cared enough to not print it themselves or whatever. They were going to print at the library. I didn't know. If I run out, I'm going to check tomorrow. If I've run out, I'll make more. But for now, I don't know. I think I put 40 copies, something like that in there. They're right there. You have to print this out. Either print it yourself or go pick up a copy at the school, and you do it with on paper. All this has to be done on paper. There'll be no digital whatsoever. Ms. Rovagno, what if I do my work digitally and then print it out? You have gotten a 0. You have to hand write this work. Okay, there you go. All right, that's that. Next. So anything less than fully complete will result in the loss of half credit. So you only missed one part. That's fine. It's a 0. It's 50 maximum. You have to do the whole thing. You miss even one part. it's your fault. So that means you need to be reading every page, because you're going to find that a lot of times the questions are buried in the reading. There might be 2 options in a parentheses. You have to pick one in a paragraph of reading. You have to do that. If you don't do it, it's half credit off. I don't care if it's one little selection. Half credit off. It's right here. You've been informed. So again, you could pick that up. Now, the zombie apocalypse. This is more fun. And it's meant to be fun. Okay? It's meant to be fun. Here's how it works. So if you go to your class book, you have the Zombie Apocalypse Guidebook. And this is a tongue-in-cheek guide plan on things you need to know about the zombies attacking Shoreham. What, how zombies, how do these zombies act? Are they the kind of zombies that stumble around and don't know what's going on? Are they like Dawn of the Dead zombies that come charging at you at full speed? Like, what are we dealing with here, So you read all that stuff, and this is sort of your baseline assumptions of the zombies that you're dealing with, okay? Then you have, this is all for show. This document is just for display purposes, in effect. Your answers will be done on the accompanying sheet, which is right here. So this here, again, let me show you. Scroll down. Okay. You will digitally hand in this sheet. Now, this sheet is and should be form fillable, meaning when you download it, all right, so if I open it with, I don't know if it'll work on this screen. Yeah, it does. It's form fillable. You should be able to type right into it. All right. This is the Survivor Aptitude Profile, or the GASP. The GASP is the General Aptitude. I'll show you. The General Aptitude and Skills Summary. GASP. Sorry, not GASP. I did a typo. The GASP. Or the GASP, which is you add as much information here as you want to. If you don't want to, you notice there's no name. That's important. Don't put your name on this first page. I don't need your name. You're going to submit it digitally. So your name will be the fact that it's under, like, Bob Smith's assignment. So don't put your name on this. I don't want a name on it. There's a reason for that. So you fill this out as you think. Whatever physical aptitude you think you have, intellectual aptitude you think you have, and interpersonal aptitude you think you have, you go ahead and do that. Gender, you can put whatever you want. Weight, whatever. I'd ask you not to lie, because that's not helpful. But if you don't want to share your weight, you don't want to share your gender, you don't want to share your blood type, you don't know your blood type, don't want to be bothered finding out, leave it. It's fine. No big deal. And then tell us what you think about these other things. This will matter. This will have another use in the first couple weeks of school, so that's why I need it done. But again, as much as you want to do on this particular page is voluntary. Could I not do anything? Again, that's an attitude check. That's a character check. You do you. All right. Technically, you shouldn't have to do it, so I didn't do it. All right. Congratulations. You're the most clever person in the room. Now, moving on past that. You have the EMS, the Essential Materials for Survival. So this is 25 items that you would take with you if a zombie invasion kicked off tomorrow. Let's assume for a moment that, you're planning ahead. You think, all right, zombies might show up. So again, you can just type it in to the list, whatever it is. Is a single bottle of water a single item? If I want 25 bottles of water, is that 25 items? No, you could say one case of water is like one item. That's kind of how I do it. Use some common sense, if your family owns guns, all right, maybe a single gun's an item, maybe a box of ammunition's an item, whatever it might be, 100 rounds, whatever comes in a standard box. That's up to you. All right, I'm going to leave a lot of this to your discretion. This is not mandatory. You are going to put the 20. Now, there's only 22 spots on here because I ran out of room. So we'll go with 22. 22 is fine. You have to find a place to put 25. 22 is fine. As I said, this is just an old guide that I used to actually print out and hand students. Now I'm doing it digitally. So that's that. Next, you can pick a zombie shelter. Now, your zombie shelter works like this, right? So you're going to go in here. You're going to pick your zombie shelter. This whole area can be response. You can say whatever, the high school, all right? And then I just want a brief description as to why that shelter, okay? So when you choose a ZS, which is the zombie shelter, and also when you create the ZAS section, you must follow directions I give in my live stream. So let me explain what those directions are. Over here, after you pick your spot, I want 200 words or so. Basically just fill this out. You can't really, and you should not really be able to change the font on it. Fill it out with the with your rationale. Why? And the rationale should be very simple. You cover these 4 elements. Give me a sort of a small paragraph on security, sustainability, ease of entry and exit, and distractibility. So 4 paragraphs in here. So when I say 200 words, I really mean give me an organized response that fits this page of each of those elements. Okay, so why, what is the security reasons that, or what are you thinking about when you pick this? So if you pick, like, I don't know, say for example, the high school, and the high school is rated as not particularly secure, what are you thinking about? What's your thought process for, even though it's not secure, it's the least secure environment of all of them pretty much, why is it that you're still picking it? Like, address its weakness. Okay, and do that for each of these. Like, why did you pick each of these? Again, this is a guide. You're not doing anything with the green packet here. This is just sort of the instruction packet. You're doing everything on here. So again, you're going to kind of just 4 of these, and that's kind of it. If you want to kind of look at it this way, you can kind of see in the background there, I don't know if I can really show you exactly, but you can kind of see it. You have like 4 rows, I guess they're called, right? 1, 2, 3. Oh, my mouse is on the wrong page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, even if you kind of kept your response to filling up one of these as like that security and whatever, that's kind of fine. I'm not going to hard count the word count on this. I'm more like wanting to see a filled up page. All right, I want to see a filled up page. And it's important, again, because I'm going to use it. Everybody who picks the high school, I want to know why. Everybody picks King Cullen, I want to know why. Everybody picks Crazy Uncle Carl, I want to know why. And why you didn't care about the negatives of those things. Like, why did you ignore the negatives? What about the positives outweigh the negatives, and so forth? That's the way I want you to think about it. All right. So that's got to be done there. Now we'll get to the ZASP in a second, because that's the final section. So you get past all these options. You can read them. I'm not going to read them at you. Let's talk about the zombie apocalypse survival plan, because this is going to be the one where I spend the most time on this. There is no response space for that here. This ends at zombie shelter. So where do you put this? You put this in a Google Doc you make. It has to be in a Google Doc, and this is required and critical. Not only does that have to be in a Google Doc, you must start it in that Google Doc, you must edit it in that Google Doc, you must write it entirely in that Google Doc. Nothing in this Google Doc can be cut and pasted from anywhere else. Nothing. Why is that? Well, the answer is simple. How does one detect AI usage? So for those who aren't aware or don't know, I teach at Suffolk as a professor. My time at Suffolk has introduced me to every possible lie that is offered up when a student is caught using AI. Last year took the cake with a student claiming to be in France and therefore unable to physically show me the AI generated stuff they made into an AI generated photograph they tried to use to prove to me that they in fact had taken notes on the paper they 100% AI'd. And I do find it entertaining personally to sort of track down these kind of lies and expose them. I won't name names, but some of you coming into this course have had brush-ins with me in the past when you were younger regarding AI. You know how I feel about it. Now, the person you are then and the person you are now is a lifetime apart in a teenage life. 14-year-old or 15-year-old or a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old, these are very different human beings. So I hold no grudges whatsoever. But at this point, it is an integrity issue. So, once again, what is my recurring theme in the summer assignment and the course for the entire year? My recurring theme is I have to protect you from yourself. So there is always going to be the temptation to cheat. Always. Everybody has that temptation. I hold my hands up and say all the time, I've cheated on things in school myself. I don't pretend that's not true. But I don't think, although the stories might be a little funny, I don't think it was wise. I don't think it was wise, for example, to cheat on my statistics final when one day I'm going to be responsible for teaching statistics and probability in economics. Probably not a smart decision. Now, younger me Didn't know that that was my future. In fact, younger me thought this was it. I finished this course. I never look at math again in an academic sense. Well, that was really dumb. And nowadays, I deeply regret not throwing all my effort into becoming better at math as a younger person, because I actually really enjoy math now. I'm not that good at it, but I really enjoy it, and I would have liked to have been good at it. So that's the thing I actually really, really regret. So I'm old enough to have learned from my mistakes. You know, they always say youth is wasted on the young. When I was young, I was an idiot, much like you. So I'm going to try and protect you from the stupidity that I myself know exists in the young person's brain. So one of those things is to give you a difficult time taking the easy way out. I want to make the easy way somewhat less easy. So by doing everything in a Google Doc, we open up an opportunity for me. And that opportunity is that thing right there. That is your edit history. Now, every 2 minutes, give or take, this will update. If you're actively writing your 200-word paragraphs in one single document, editing them, fixing them, changing them, you will find that there will be a multitude of these edits, minute by minute by minute by minute throughout the paper. Multitude of them in an assignment this size. I'm a very fast typer. I can knock out, if I know what I want to write, I can knock out a paragraph in 2 minutes, no problem. So if you're a very fast typist, I might see things like a whole paragraph just appear on one sort of timestamp. I might see that. But if I see that that happens for the entire paper, and there are no spelling mistakes whatsoever, no grammatical changes whatsoever, nobody goes back and edits anything, I'm going to literally sit you down in front of my computer at school, and I'm going to say, okay, you type fast enough that every paragraph you write happens in 2 minutes. No problem. Here's a paragraph you wrote. Here's a speed test online. Here's my mechanical keyboard. You have no problem whatsoever. I'm going to give you all the necessary tools you need, and you're going to prove to me you can type that fast. And that's what we'll do. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that this is one factor demonstrating that this is a cut and paste job derived from an AI somewhere. I will use other things to determine that, but it is very unlikely that a student has a really, truly, honestly written paper that has no mistakes, no edits, no nothing, and paragraphs just show up every 2 minutes. That's really unlikely. Much more likely is a bunch of stuff typed, removed, erased, things moved around, formatted differently, cleaned up a bit, and that's why no cutting pasting is allowed. Everything needs to be in this particular document so I can see every edit's origin and where it comes from. This will be a thing we do all year long. This is an effective check against AI usage. It is another, what's the word I want to use? It's another point. It's another point on a line on a graph that points at a particular outcome. I will run every single one of these things through an AI checker, several of them. I remind you, I have access to my accounts at Suffolk. Suffolk does not use Quillbot or Zero Chat or any of that nonsense. Suffolk uses Turnitin.com, which is a much more robust program that does a very excellent job of checking AI. My general rule is that anything that is 30% or under on that program, I will consider a false positive as a courtesy. Turnitin.com says that actually it's only 20% or under that they consider to be a false positive. Anything higher than that is almost certainly AI to that extent. And not only that, but it can actually tell me which sections of the paper have been AI'd. So even if you only took 2 or 3 sentences or just padded out the back end of the paper just to get it done, or generated the whole thing and then had to humanize it and throw it back in, oh, they'll never catch it, I've humanized it. You're wrong. You're wrong. Turnitin.com checks for humanized AI. I'm not saying you can't beat it. I'm not saying you might not get away with it. I'm saying that we're going to find out. And if I find out it's AI, it's a 0. The whole thing. That's not good. That's really not good. So, just so we know, okay, when you get an assignment in my course, if I find AI and you cannot prove to my satisfaction that there's a reasonable doubt in my head that you may have actually done the work, it will be AI. How much do I have to prove it to you? 51%. That's the burden of evidence I work on. If it's more likely than not that you did the paper, I will not penalize you for AI unless I have some very strong proof. But if I have very strong proof, then I will not believe it's more likely than not that you actually did it. If I believe it's more likely than not that you used AI, we're going to go down that road, and you're going to have to convince me otherwise. So I'm going to give you the tools that will demonstrate to me and convince me that no, you didn't AI it. Look at all these options, these edits. Look at all this work. Look at all the time. It's happened over the course of 3 weeks, not 3 minutes. That would make much more sense to me. So that's why we do this. It is a very effective check against that kind of stuff. So again, this is a requirement. So make sure you do this requirement as it is. Let's go through this assignment again, though. So just to be clear, you're writing each section, A, B, C, D, E, 200 words in length. I am not grading this on the quality of your strategy. I'm not saying that a student loses points if their concept for how to survive a zombie apocalypse isn't accurate or isn't good. I've never been in a zombie apocalypse. Turns out I'm not an expert either. Okay? This is meant to be tongue-in-cheek, but it is teaching you economics even if you don't know it. But if you're not engaging honestly with the material, then you're just cheating. And academic dishonesty is not a thing I go for. I don't like it. I know the real consequences of it, again, both personally and otherwise. So, nope, we won't be doing that, all right? So that's that there. So that's the summer assignment part of that's the zombie thing. Now, you will take an exam in the first week of school. When exactly is going to depend, and it's a multiple choice exam. It will be testing the first 2 chapters of the book, as well as the material covered in the workbook stuff that I gave you. So if you take the shortcut on that, you're going to bomb this test. It's half the summer assignment grade. I will get this out of the way now. In 10th grade, the same kind of exam exists, and I allow students to have a test correction on it. There will be no test corrections on this exam. Ongoing multiple choice quizzes in class, I've decided, yes, we're going to do test corrections like I did in AP World. I felt like that does shore up the multiple choice a little bit, and I do want to do that this year. Not on this. This is what it is. So 50% of your summer assignment grade is coming off this exam, and it's going to be based on that material. I am telling you now, I am not building a quiz out of stuff that chapter 1 and 2 covers. No. I'm going into chapter 1 and 2, looking for the things I want to test, and I'm testing them. Expect a lot of key terms in there. So things that look like vocabulary terms in chapter 1 and 2, make sure you know them. Like if you don't know what scarcity is on this, you're going to get one wrong right there. I'll tell you that. So that's what I'm doing. That is a thing that is happening. The grade, the reading level of the test will be 13th grade level. I find that a lot of students struggle in the Malvagno. When you explain it, I understand it. And then when I read the question in the technical language of economics, I don't know what I'm looking at. So we have to work on that too. So like I said, all this has really got nothing to do with you. This is what I think I need to do a better job with the students who are more inclined to sort of pump the brakes at every opportunity. For those of you who are workers, this will only be to your benefit. It'll be more likely to get you a 4 or 5 on the exam. Very doable for a lot more people in this class that would have been true in 10th grade because you're all smarter, you're more cognitively developed, all of you are theoretically ready for college. The idea that a 17-year-old in an AP class should get an A on a college class is a much, much, much more reasonable thing to ask than a 14-year-old doing the same thing back in 10th grade. So anyway, here we are. So that's all I've got. At 52 minutes, I feel like I've yapped on enough. I really do hope you've all signed up for the AP Summer Week. I think you'll find that to be invaluable for understanding what the course is going to be like. Look, the course is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And do I cover a bunch of stuff that's random and different? And are there projects about like setting a goal in your life and achieving it? Those things are all true. None of that's changing. What I'm changing is the elements of the course where if I were to say to you, I can trust you to be the master of your own instruction, and I can teach you things and you'll do the work I ask you to do because you recognize it's in your interest, I can no longer make that bargain with my classes, at least not until I see a change from what I saw last year. And I'm taking, sort of the bull by the horns, and I'm going to make policies and we're going to put procedures in place so that way we still have the same fun, but the accountability and the what we used to call in college the recitation, the repetition of doing the work in a meaningful way is also present, and is at least more difficult for you to take shortcuts on, rather than so easy that it's almost silly not to take the shortcut. So that's what it is. Okay, but we're gonna have a good time. It'll be fun. I'm not blaming anybody. Last year's students did as they did. I had kids who did very, very well, who surprised me with how well they did, and some of them were kind of knuckleheads, and one of them probably knows what I'm talking about if they ever heard this. But at the same time, there were students who I know are better students than their grades represented, and I think if you ask them honestly, they'd say, "Yeah, I just didn't care." And I think that's that Shoreham senior thing, and I don't want to go that route. So it's my job again to protect you from yourself, and I think that I could have done a better job on that last year, so I'm going to do it this year, and we will have a good time. I'm sure of it. So, yeah, no chat questions. That's fine. I don't think there necessarily needs to be any questions. This is just what it is. But again, anything, email me here. I've been away for the past week, so if you're watching this now, it's 7:20. I haven't really been around, so I haven't checked my email yet this week. I'm going to check it tomorrow on Tuesday when I get into, I'm actually going into school tomorrow morning to plot and plan this weekly thing. I got some ideas I want to make sure work before I do it with the school's technical side. Yeah, and I'm serious. Don't ever email that SWR schools address. I don't look at it. If it forwards to me, great. If it doesn't forward to me, then I don't get it. And there you go. All right, assignments due by September 11th, and by that I mean the written portions are brought in on September 11th, and the rest of them are digitally due by the end of the day, September 11th. So on or before September 11th. Okay? All right, guys, I got nothing else. Those of you who tuned in, how many do we actually end up getting in terms of total viewers? I got total 25 viewers. That's not bad. Little less than half the students were watching at some point or another, and the average duration of view was 12 minutes. I guess you guys like, he's yapping, I'm going to come back later and watch this. That's totally fine. If you know people who maybe didn't get the message, tell them they can watch this on YouTube once it's posted. It'll be up there, and I'll see you guys in August. Bye.